Picture this. 3 knights in white cloaks standing in a desert wasteland. Behind them a tower holding a secret that kingdoms have died for. Before them, 7 warriors riding closer with every heartbeat. The war is over. Their king is dead. Their prince has fallen. The dynasty they served has crumbled to ash. They could walk away. They could bend the knee. They could live. But they don't. "I looked for you on the Trident," the Lord of Winterfell says, his voice heavy with accusation and respect. "We were not there," replies an old knight, whose white cloak is stained with decades of service. "Woe to the usurper if you had been." Those words hang in the air like a death sentence, because everyone knows what comes next. Steel will sing, blood will flow, legends will die, and inside that tower, a secret will be kept at the cost of everything. But how did it come to this? How does the greatest knight of his generation end up dying in the middle of nowhere, protecting something he can't even name? What oath could be so absolute, so unbreakable, that 3 of history's finest warriors choose certain death over survival? This is the story of Gerold Hightower, the White Bull, the Lord Commander who never broke, the knight who stood guard while kings went mad, the man who watched the realm burn and kept his oath anyway. And in the end, when everything fell apart, he made one final stand that would echo through history forever. Let me take you back to where it all began, to Old Town, to a boy who would become a legend. The year is sometime during the reign of Aegon V of his name, called Aegon, the Unlikely. The realm knows an uneasy peace. The Blackfire rebellions have finally ended after 5 bloody attempts to seize the Iron Throne. King Aegon sits in King's Landing with dreams of reforming the realm, of helping the small folk, of making Westeros better than it has ever been. But the great lords resist him. The high nobility sees his reforms as threats to their ancient privileges. Tension simmers beneath the surface of every royal decree. And in the far south, in the oldest and proudest city in all of Westeros, a boy is growing into manhood in the shadow of the tallest tower ever built by human hands. Old Town, the jewel of the Reach, where the citadel trains maesters who serve every castle in the 7 kingdoms, where the starry sept has stood for thousands of years, predating even the Targaryens and their dragons, where the mighty Hightower rises nearly 800 feet into the sky, its beacon visible for hundreds of miles, guiding ships safely to harbor. This is a city of learning, of ancient wisdom, of power that flows not from swords but from knowledge and wealth accumulated over millennia. House Hightower has ruled here since the Dawn Age. Their bloodline stretches back so far that history becomes legend and legend becomes myth. They are not kings, but their wealth rivals that of Casterly Rock. Their influence shapes the politics of the entire South. To be born a Hightower is to inherit a legacy of service, honor, and unshakable pride. Young Gerold Hightower grows up in this world of white stone and salt air, the second son perhaps, or a younger brother, not the heir, but close enough to greatness to taste it. He trains in the yards beneath his family's tower, his sword ringing against the weapons of other noble sons and hired masters at arms. He studies with maesters who drift over from the citadel, learning history and heraldry, warfare and wisdom. He attends feasts where the most powerful lords of the Reach gather, watching, listening, learning the game of politics played at the highest levels. But what sets him apart is not his birth or his education, it is his skill. By the time Gerold reaches his teenage years, his prowess with sword and lance has become the talk of the South. In tourneys up and down the Reach, this young Hightower consistently defeats knights twice his age. His strength is prodigious. His speed is remarkable. His tactical mind grasps the flow of combat with an intuition that cannot be taught. They begin calling him the Bull even then. Not yet the white bull, just the bull. For when he charges in a tourney, nothing can stand before him, and when he commits to something, nothing can turn him aside. But the question that shapes his youth is simple. What does a second son do with such gifts? Most noble sons inherit lands. They marry well, produce heirs, manage their estates, and fade into comfortable obscurity. But Gerold Hightower is not most noble sons. By his early 20s, his reputation has spread far beyond the reach. Tournament victories pile up like autumn leaves. Knights who have fought for decades find themselves unhorsed by this young southerner, whose strength seems almost supernatural. His technique is flawless, his courage is unquestionable, and more importantly, his character stands beyond reproach. In an age where many knights are little more than armed thugs with fancy titles, Gerold embodies something older, something purer. The kind of knighthood that exists more in songs than reality. King Aegon V notices, the unlikely king, who rose to power through the deaths of many who stood before him in succession, understands the value of truly honorable men. His Kingsguard needs renewal. Too many of the white cloaks have grown old or complacent. Some serve for political reasons rather than merit. The order that should represent the pinnacle of knighthood has become just another tool of court politics. Aegon wants to change that. He wants knights who actually deserve the white cloak, and when his advisors mention a young Hightower who wins every tourney he enters and has never been touched by scandal, the king pays attention. The summons arrives at Old Town on a morning that seems like any other, a royal messenger bearing the three-headed dragon of House Targaryen, a letter sealed with the king's own sigil. Lord Hightower opens it in his solar, while Gerold waits, wondering what business the crown could possibly have with their house. The offer is extraordinary. The king invites Gerold to King's Landing to be considered for the Kingsguard. Not promised, not guaranteed, considered. He will have to prove himself worthy. But the opportunity alone represents the highest honor a knight can receive. Gerold accepts immediately. Some might hesitate, might weigh the costs against the benefits. But he has always known, somewhere deep inside, that his path leads away from Old Town. He is not meant to be a lord managing trade routes and settling disputes between merchants. He is meant for something else, something greater. When he puts his affairs in order and prepares to leave, he feels not grief but anticipation. The journey north takes weeks. Gerold rides with a small retinue of Hightower men-at-arms, but he knows he will likely return alone or not at all. If he takes the white cloak, he belongs to the crown forever. No family, no home, just service. King's Landing rises before him like a promise and a threat. The city is everything. Old Town is not. Where Old Town is ancient grace and accumulated wisdom, King's Landing is raw power and barely controlled chaos. The streets stink of waste and ambition. The people are harder, hungrier, more desperate. And above it all, on Aegon's high hill, the Red Keep broods like a blood-red crown over the capital of the Seven Kingdoms. The Gerold is brought before King Aegon in a private audience. The king is smaller than expected, older, careworn, but his eyes are sharp and kind. They speak of a man who cares deeply about his realm and suffers for that caring. You have quite a reputation, young Hightower. Aegon says without preamble, they say you've never lost a tourney, never been unhorsed, never been defeated in single combat. Tourneys are not war, your grace, Gerold replies, and reputation means nothing if the man beneath it lacks substance. Aegon smiles. Wise words. Tell me, why do you want to join my Kingsguard? The honest answer comes easily. Because I want my life to matter, your grace. I want to serve something greater than myself. I want to be remembered not as a rich man or a powerful lord, but as a knight who kept his oath. The oath is no small thing. Aegon warns, you will take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. Everything you are belongs to the crown. Your desires, your dreams, your very life becomes mine to command. Many men take the white cloak thinking it means glory and honor, but mostly it means standing in hallways for hours while nothing happens. It means watching other men live the lives you gave up. Are you truly ready for that? Gerold meets the king's eyes. I am your grace, and he means it. Some part of him has always known that normal life was never meant for him. The white cloak is not a sacrifice, it is a calling. The ceremony happens within the week. Aegon does not make him wait or prove himself through some elaborate test. The king trusts his instincts, and his instincts say that Gerold Hightower is exactly what the Kingsguard needs. The throne room fills with courtiers and nobles curious to see the newest addition to the White Brotherhood. Gerold kneels before the Iron Throne, that twisted mass of swords that Aegon the Conqueror forged from the weapons of his defeated enemies. The metal seems to drink the light rather than reflect it. A reminder that power is built on blood and submission. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Ser Duncan the Tall, stands beside the throne. He is enormous, well over 6.5 feet, his white cloak draped over shoulders broad as a barn door. But his face is kind. This is a man who remembers being small, being nothing, being a hedge knight scraping by on the edge of starvation. He rose from poverty to become Lord Commander through deeds that are already legendary. And now he watches this young southerner with approval in his eyes. King Aegon speaks the words that will change everything. Do you swear before the eyes of gods and men to defend the king and his family with your life? I do, your grace. Do you swear to take no wife, hold no lands, father no children, and win no glory save in service to your king? I swear it. Do you swear to guard the king's secrets, keep his counsel, and obey his commands until death or release? I swear it by all the gods, old and new. Ser Duncan steps forward. In his huge hands, the white cloak looks small. He drapes it across Gerold's shoulders, and the weight of it feels both lighter and heavier than Gerold expected. Lighter because it is just wool and thread. Heavier because it represents everything he is giving up and everything he is becoming. Rise, Sir Gerold of the Kingsguard, King Aegon commands. Gerold stands. He is no longer a Hightower, not really. He is something else now. A man in white, a sword sworn to the crown, a knight whose entire existence is defined by service. The applause of the court washes over him. He barely hears it, because standing there in the throne room with the white cloak on his shoulders, Gerold feels something he has never felt before, a sense of absolute rightness. This is where he belongs. This is what he was meant to be. After the ceremony, Ser Duncan pulls him aside. The Lord Commander's voice is rough but warm. That cloak you're wearing, boy, it comes with a price, not just the vows you spoke, but the weight you'll carry. You'll see things you can't stop, hear things you can't unhear, and you'll have to stand there and do nothing because the oath demands it. Can you live with that? Gerold thinks about the question, really thinks about it. I don't know, say, but I'll find out. Duncan smiles sadly. You will. We all do. The older knight places a hand on Gerold's shoulder, and in that moment, something passes between them, a torch being handed from one generation to the next. Duncan sees potential in this young Hightower, potential to be great, potential to carry the ideals of true knighthood forward into an uncertain future. What neither of them knows is how soon that torch will pass, how soon tragedy will strike, how soon Gerold will have to carry a weight he never expected. But for now, in this moment, Gerold Hightower stands in the Red Keep wearing white for the first time, and he believes with all his heart that he has found his purpose. He has no idea what keeping that purpose will cost him. Gerold serves King Aegon for years, good years mostly. He learns what it truly means to wear the white cloak, the endless hours standing guard while the world moves around him, the political maneuvering of court that he must witness but never participate in, the strange intimacy of protecting people so closely that you know their secrets, their fears, their private moments, yet remain forever separate from their lives. Duncan the Tall becomes more than just Lord Commander. He becomes mentor, friend, father figure. The giant knight teaches Gerold lessons that go far beyond swordplay. How to read people, how to sense danger before it arrives, how to serve with dignity, even when your king makes choices you disagree with. Most importantly, Duncan teaches him that true knighthood is not about glory or reputation. It is about the man you are when no one is watching, the choices you make when there is no reward. King Aegon grows older, more frustrated. His reforms to help the small folk meet constant resistance from the great lords. Every attempt to make the realm more just is blocked by men who profit from injustice. The king's idealism crashes against the sharp rocks of political reality. Gerold watches this good man slowly realize that being king does not mean having power to change the things that most need changing. But Aegon has one obsession that grows stronger as his failures mount: dragons. The great beasts that gave House Targaryen dominion over Westeros have been dead for more than a century. The last dragon, a small sickly thing, died during the reign of Aegon III. Since then, the Targaryens have been kings without their most potent symbol of power. Just men with silver hair and purple eyes, ruling through law and tradition rather than fire and terror. Aegon V believes he can bring them back. He studies ancient texts, consults with strange practitioners of arts, best left forgotten, collects dragon eggs that have turned to stone, and he becomes convinced that at Summerhall, his favorite castle, something miraculous can happen. Summerhall sits in the Dornish Marches, built by Aegon's father as a summer retreat. It is smaller than the Red Keep, more intimate, more beautiful, a place of happiness rather than power, and it is here that Aegon plans his greatest work. The spring of the year 259 comes with false promise. After the longest winter in living memory, the warmth feels like rebirth. Aegon summons many of the great lords to Summerhall for a celebration. His son's wife, Princess Rhaella, is about to give birth. A new prince or princess will be born, and Aegon plans to mark the occasion with something unprecedented. Gerold is there. Of course, the king's guard must always be near the king. He stands his posts, patrols the grounds, and tries to ignore the growing unease he feels. There are pyromancers present, dangerous men who work with wildfire, that volatile green substance that burns hotter than normal flame and cannot be extinguished with water. Aegon has them preparing something in the lower levels of the castle, something secret. Duncan the Tall shares Gerold's concern. The old knight has seen enough of life to know when men are playing with forces beyond their understanding. But what can they do? The king commands, and the king's guard obeys. That is the oath. The day it happens starts no different than any other. Spring sunshine pours through Summerhall's windows. The smell of flowering trees drifts on the breeze. Princess Rhaella's labor begins, and the castle fills with the anticipation of new life entering the world. Then something goes catastrophically wrong. The fire starts somewhere deep in the castle. Perhaps a pyromancer makes a mistake. Perhaps the wildfire ignites prematurely. Perhaps the ritual Aegon attempts simply cannot be controlled. Whatever the cause, the result is instantaneous disaster. Wildfire does not burn like normal flame. It explodes, it consumes, it spreads with terrifying speed and impossible heat. Within minutes, Summerhall is an inferno. The beautiful summer castle becomes a death trap of collapsing stone and roaring fire. Gerold is in the outer ward when it begins. He sees smoke billowing from the windows, hears the screams starting, and then Duncan the Tall is running toward the main keep, shouting orders, his white cloak streaming behind him like a banner of defiance against the flames. "Get the royal family out," Duncan roars. "All Kingsguard to me." Gerold runs. They all run, into smoke so thick it blinds, into heat so intense it blisters exposed skin. The castle is coming apart. Stone cracks from the temperature. Wooden beams collapse in showers of sparks, and everywhere people are dying. Gerold finds a servant woman trapped beneath fallen rubble. He hauls her free, pushes her toward the entrance. A young squire, barely more than a boy, stands frozen in terror as fire races up the tapestry toward him. Gerold grabs him, drags him to safety. His hands are burning. His lungs scream for clean air. But he keeps moving, keeps searching, keeps trying to save who he can. He never finds the king. None of them do. Aegon V dies somewhere in the heart of the inferno, consumed by the very fire he sought to control. His son, Prince Duncan, dies trying to reach him. The king's most trusted friends perish, attempting rescue. And Ser Duncan the Tall, the Lord Commander who rose from nothing to become legend, disappears into flames and smoke, and is never seen alive again. Gerold searches until the heat drives him back, until the castle is an unsalvageable ruin, until he has to accept that Duncan is gone. The man who taught him everything about being a knight, the mentor who showed him that honor and duty are not just words but living principles, dead in the service of a king whose dream turned to nightmare. But amid the death, there is life. Princess Rhaella survives. She gives birth even as Summerhall burns around her, and the child, Prince Rhaegar, arrives in blood and fire, born while his grandfather and uncle die trying to make dragons. Some whisper that this is the prince that was promised, born of smoke and salt, the fulfillment of ancient prophecy. Others simply thank the gods that the royal line continues. The aftermath is chaos. King Aegon is dead. Prince Duncan is dead. The Lord Commander is dead. Other members of the Kingsguard are dead or badly wounded. The realm must have a new king immediately. Aegon's second son, Jaehaerys, is crowned within days. There is no time for extended mourning. The Seven Kingdoms cannot be without a monarch, and the Kingsguard cannot be without a Lord Commander. Jaehaerys II looks at the surviving White Knights. Some are old, some are injured, some lack the temperament for leadership. His choice is not difficult, but Gerold Hightower has proven himself in the flames of Summerhall. He kept his head while others panicked, saved lives while risking his own. And more than that, he carries Duncan's teaching. The old Lord Commander's legacy lives in this younger knight. Sir Gerold, the new king says in a private audience, "I am naming you Lord Commander of my Kingsguard." The promotion comes too soon. Gerold is young for such responsibility. There are other knights with more years of service, more experience in politics and war, but none of them are Gerold Hightower. None of them learned directly from Duncan the Tall. "Your Grace, I am honored, but I am not ready." Jaehaerys shakes his head. No one is ever ready for the weight of command. Duncan wasn't ready when he first took the white cloak, but he grew into it, and so will you. I need someone I can trust, absolutely. Someone who will tell me truth rather than what I want to hear. Someone who understands that the Kingsguard exists to protect, not to play politics. You are that man. So Gerold accepts. He writes his name in the White Book, that record of all who have ever served in the King's Guard. His handwriting is bold, forceful, larger than Duncan's flowing script. It reflects the man he is becoming, strong, uncompromising, absolute in his dedication to duty. The white cloak of the Lord Commander settles on his shoulders. It feels impossibly heavy. He is responsible now not just for his own service, but for 6 other knights, for maintaining the standard, for recruiting new members when positions become vacant, for advising the king on matters of security and honor, for embodying the ideal that the rest of Westeros looks to. He is young for the role. Yes, but that youth comes with fire and determination. Gerold throws himself into rebuilding the King's Guard. Several positions need filling after the disaster at Summerhall. He will not compromise. He will not accept political appointees or nobles who want the white cloak for prestige. He will recruit only men of genuine skill and honor. Men who understand that the cloak is a burden, not a prize. The memory of Duncan the Tall guides every decision. Gerold asks himself constantly what the old knight would do, how Duncan would handle this situation or that problem. He carries his mentor's ghost with him, trying to be worthy of the faith both Duncan and King Jaehaerys have placed in him. Late at night, alone in his quarters, Gerold sometimes allows himself to feel the grief. Duncan should still be alive, should be Lord Commander for another decade at least. Gerold should have had more time to learn, to prepare, to become ready for this responsibility. But Summerhall took all that away, took Duncan, took the king, left only ashes and difficult questions. The lesson is brutal but clear. Duty is not safe. Service is not comfortable. The oath may demand everything, including your life, and there will be no warning, no time to prepare. You simply have to be ready always, because the moment of testing arrives without announcement. Gerold Hightower is Lord Commander now, the youngest to ever hold the position. He carries Duncan's teachings, Aegon's tragedy, and the weight of a white cloak that 7 men before him made legendary. He will honor that legacy. He will serve with absolute dedication, and he will make certain that when his own name is finally complete in the White Book, it will be a record of unwavering loyalty and perfect duty. He has no idea that keeping that promise will one day require him to stand silent while innocents burn, that his oath will trap him between honor and horror, that the white cloak will become both his pride and his curse. For now he is simply the White Bull, young, strong, determined, the Lord Commander who will restore the King's Guard to glory. The darkness comes later. King Jaehaerys II is nothing like his father. Where Aegon was bold and idealistic, Jaehaerys is cautious and practical. The new king saw what happened when his father chased impossible dreams. He watched Summerhall burn. He will not repeat those mistakes. His reign will be measured, careful, focused on stability rather than transformation. Gerold serves him faithfully. The young Lord Commander throws himself into the work of protecting the royal family and rebuilding the King's Guard's strength. He recruits carefully, looking for men of genuine quality rather than political convenience. Slowly, the Brotherhood begins to recover from the losses at Summerhall. Not all the new knights are legends, but they are competent and honorable. It is a start. King Jaehaerys comes to rely on his Lord Commander for more than just security. Gerold has a seat on the small council, as all Lord Commanders do. But while some in that role remain silent observers, Gerold speaks when asked. His advice is practical, honest, uncolored by personal ambition. He has no lands to enrich, no family to elevate, no political faction to serve. He can speak truth because he has nothing to gain from lies. The king appreciates this. In a court full of lords maneuvering for advantage, Gerold Hightower stands apart. The white cloak is more than decoration. It is a statement of absolute loyalty that cannot be bought or bent. For a year, the realm enjoys relative peace. Jaehaerys governs quietly. The great lords, relieved that he is not pursuing his father's radical reforms, settle into comfortable prosperity. Trade flourishes. Harvests are good. The small folk are content enough. It is the kind of reign that will never be sung about in songs, but the people live better for its mundane stability. Then news arrives from across the narrow sea that changes everything. The Stepstones, that chain of rocky islands between Westeros and Essos, have become a nest of pirates and sellswords. 9 captains of mercenary companies have banded together, calling themselves the Band of Nine. They raid shipping, threaten trade routes, and grow bolder with each success. Merchants complain to the crown. The economy begins to suffer as ships avoid dangerous waters. But the real threat is not the piracy itself. It is who leads one of the 9 companies, Malice Blackfire, called the Monstrous, a massive brute of a man, deformed and brutal, who claims descent from the Blackfire pretenders. For 5 generations, the Blackfire line has launched rebellions against the Targaryens. 5 times they have been defeated, and now a 6th pretender has arisen, backed by sellswords and fueled by old grudges. King Jaehaerys has no choice. The Blackfire threat must be ended permanently. If Malice establishes a base in the Stepstones and gathers support, he could launch an invasion of Westeros itself. Better to face him now, on foreign soil, than wait for the war to arrive at home. The realm mobilizes. Lords from across the 7 kingdoms answer the call to arms. This will be the largest military campaign since the conquest. Ships are gathered, armies assembled, and the king's own forces prepare to cross the narrow sea under the command of the Hand, Lord Ormond Baratheon. Gerold goes with them. Part of the Kingsguard must stay in King's Landing to protect the royal family, but the Lord Commander's place is with the army, where the crown's interests are at stake. There must be white cloaks present. Gerold chooses which of his brothers will accompany him, and which will remain. It is one of many decisions that come with command. The crossing is rough. The narrow sea lives up to its reputation for sudden storms and treacherous currents, but the fleet makes it through, and the armies land on the Stepstones. What follows is brutal, grinding warfare on rocky islands with little water and less cover. The Band of Nine fight like cornered rats. They know every cave, every hidden path, every advantage the terrain offers. The casualties mount. Young knights who dreamed of glory find only blood and exhaustion. Lords who imagined quick victory discover that sellswords are professional killers, not the honorable opponents of tourney fields. This is war without romance. Dirty, desperate, and cruel. Then disaster strikes. Lord Ormond Baratheon, the Hand of the King, is killed in battle against Malice himself. The Monstrous lives up to his name, cutting down the realm's highest official in personal combat. Command structure threatens to collapse. The army wavers, leaderless and shaken. Gerold acts without hesitation. As Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, he has authority that transcends normal military hierarchy. He steps into the void left by Ormond's death and takes command of the royal forces. Some lords bristle at taking orders from a knight with no lands or title beyond his white cloak. But most recognize necessity. The army needs leadership now, and Gerold Hightower can provide it. He is not a brilliant tactical innovator, but he is solid, methodical, unshakable. He reorganizes the scattered forces, establishes clear chains of command, ensures that supplies reach the troops, and that the wounded receive care. Most importantly, he leads from the front. The white cloak is visible in every major engagement, a symbol that the crown has not abandoned its soldiers. The war grinds on. Island by island, the Band of Nine is pushed back. Their unity fractures under pressure. Some companies break their alliance and flee. Others fight to the death. Manlis himself holds out the longest, his company of loyalists making a final stand on one of the larger islands. Then a young knight changes everything. Sir Barristan Selmy, barely more than 20 years old, challenges Meleys the monstrous to single combat. It is audacious to the point of madness. Meleys is huge, experienced, and has killed dozens of men in battle. Barristan is slender, untested in real war, knighted only recently. The duel lasts less than a minute. Barristan's speed is incredible. His technique is flawless, and his courage is absolute. He dances around Meleys' powerful strikes, waiting for the opening, and when it comes he takes it. The monstrous falls with Barristan's blade through his throat. The last Blackfire pretender dies in the dirt of the stepstones, and with him dies a century of civil war. Gerold watches it happen, sees this young knight accomplish what entire armies struggled to achieve, and he knows immediately that Barristan Selmy belongs in the Kingsguard. This is not political calculation or reward for family connections. This is recognizing genuine greatness when you see it. After the war ends, the army returns to Westeros as heroes. King Jaehaerys is there to greet them, grateful that the Blackfire threat has finally been eliminated forever. The realm celebrates, tourneys are held, songs are written, the veterans of the Stepstones are honored across the 7 kingdoms, and Gerold approaches Barristan Selmy with an offer. The Kingsguard has a place for you if you want it. Barristan, still young enough to show surprise, stammers his acceptance. To be offered the White Cloak at 23 is extraordinary. To be offered it by the Lord Commander himself is an honor beyond words. The induction ceremony is simpler than Gerold's own years earlier. No grand audience, no throne room full of courtiers, just the king, the Kingsguard, and a young knight taking vows that will define the rest of his life. Gerold drapes the white cloak across Barristan's shoulders, and he sees in this young man's eyes the same idealism he once felt himself, the belief that the oath is noble and service is glorious. Gerold does not tell him about the harder truths, how the oath will trap you, how you will see things you cannot prevent, how glory becomes burden over time. Barristan will learn those lessons himself, as Gerold did, as every Kingsguard eventually does. For now the Brotherhood is stronger. 2 of the finest knights in the realm, wearing white, Gerold Hightower, the White Bull, forceful and uncompromising, Barristan Selmy, Barristan the Bold, quick and courageous. Together they represent what the Kingsguard should be, what it can be when the right men wear the cloak. King Jaehaerys' reign continues peacefully after the war, but his health is not strong. He was never robust, and the stress of the conflict has weakened him further. Fevers come and go. Coughs linger. The maesters do what they can, but some illnesses cannot be cured, only endured. 3 years after the war, in the year 262, King Jaehaerys II dies quietly in his sleep. There is no drama, no tragedy like Summerhall, just an exhausted man slipping away after a brief reign spent cleaning up his father's mistakes and eliminating ancient threats. His son, Aerys, becomes the new king, Aerys II. Young, intelligent, charismatic. He has grown up watching his grandfather burn and his father struggle. He believes he can do better, be greater, restore House Targaryen to the glory it knew when dragons ruled the skies. Gerold has now served 3 kings: Aegon V, who died in fire; Jaehaerys II, who ruled briefly and cautiously; and now Aerys II, who takes the throne full of promise and ambition. The White Bull kneels before this new king and repeats the oath he has already lived by for years: to serve, to protect, to obey. The words are the same. The crown changes, but the duty remains eternal. What Gerold does not know, cannot know, is that this third king will test his oath in ways he never imagined, that the young man looking down at him from the Iron Throne will one day transform into a monster, that keeping his vow to protect and obey will require Gerold to stand silent while innocents die. But that darkness is years away. For now, Ares is golden. The realm celebrates a new king, and the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard believes that the hardest tests are behind him. He could not be more wrong. The early years of Ares II's reign feel like a gift from the gods. The young king is everything Westeros could hope for. Tall and handsome with the silver hair and purple eyes of old Valyria, quick-witted and charming in court, genuinely interested in the welfare of the realm. He speaks passionately about making the Seven Kingdoms prosperous and just, about building roads and harbors, about fostering trade and learning, about being remembered as a great king rather than merely adequate. And he has the perfect partner to make those dreams reality. Tywin Lannister becomes Hand of the King at only 20 years old. The Lion of Casterly Rock is everything his Lord Father was not: brilliant, ruthless when necessary, organized to the point of obsession. Under Tywin's management, the realm's finances stabilize and then flourish. The small council actually functions efficiently. Laws are enforced. Justice is administered fairly. It is a golden age that no one expected. Gerold watches all of this from his unique position. As Lord Commander, he stands in the throne room during audiences, sits on the small council, guards the king during private moments. He sees Ares at his best, when the charm and wit are genuine rather than performance. And he sees something else, a friendship between king and hand that goes beyond politics. Ares and Tywin grew up together, squired together, fought together in the War of the Ninepenny Kings. They are brothers in all but blood. The Kingsguard flourishes under Gerold's leadership. He continues to recruit only the finest knights, men who understand that the white cloak is earned through character and skill, not purchased through family connections. One by one, legendary names join the Brotherhood. Sir Arthur Dayne arrives from Starfall, bringing with him the ancestral sword Dawn, forged from a fallen star. Arthur is poetry in motion, the finest natural swordsman Gerold has ever seen. More than that, he is gentle and thoughtful, the kind of knight children dream about and cynics insist cannot exist. But Arthur Dayne is real, and in white he becomes the Sword of the Morning, a living legend. Prince Lewin Martell of Dawn takes the cloak, bringing the fiery passion of his homeland tempered with wisdom. Sir Oswell Went joins, fierce and loyal. Sir Jonathan Darry, steady as stone. Others of quality and honor. 7 knights who will be remembered for generations as perhaps the greatest Kingsguard ever assembled. Gerold feels pride in what he has built. Duncan the Tall would approve. This is what the Brotherhood should be. Not politicians in white cloaks, but genuine warriors and honorable men. They train together, trust each other, form bonds deeper than ordinary friendship. When one of them stands post, the others know that position is held absolutely. There is no doubt, no weakness, just 7 men who would die before failing their duty. The royal children arrive. Queen Rhaenyra gives birth to Prince Rhaegar, the miracle child born at Summerhall. Amid fire and death, the boy grows into a strange, melancholy youth, brilliant but distant, always reading prophecies and ancient texts, playing the harp with skill that would make professional musicians weep. Rhaegar is beloved by the small folk, who see in him the hope of the dynasty, but he carries weight no child should bear, convinced somehow that the world's fate rests on his shoulders. Other children follow. Most die in infancy or are stillborn. The grief of these losses weighs heavily on Queen Rhaenyra, who endures pregnancy after pregnancy with diminishing hope. Finally, Prince Viserys survives, a second son to secure the succession. But the cost in heartbreak has been terrible. Gerold notices changes in the king during these years. Small things at first. Geras grows jealous of Tywin's competence and popularity. The Hand is too good at his job, making the king look lesser by comparison. When lords praise Tywin's governance, Amrys hears it as criticism of himself. When maesters credit the Hand with the realm's prosperity, the king's smile grows tight. The friendship begins to curdle. Amrys makes small, cruel jokes at Tywin's expense, undermines his decisions in court, pursues petty revenges for imagined slights. Tywin endures it all with patience that must cost him dearly. The Hand continues to serve brilliantly, even as the king he serves grows colder toward him. Then comes Duskendale, the event that changes everything. Lord Daenerys Darklan, a minor lord on the coast near King's Landing, has grievances against the crown. His town has suffered economically. He wants tax relief and special privileges. When these are denied, he makes a catastrophically stupid decision. He invites King Aerys to Duskendale to discuss matters personally, then takes him hostage. It is madness. Holding the king prisoner is treason of the highest order. The entire realm will unite to crush anyone who harms the monarch. But Darklan is desperate, and his wife Sarala is manipulative. Between them, they convince themselves this can somehow work in their favor. Aerys arrives with only a small party. Gerold is not among them. The king insisted on taking different guards, wanting to appear non-threatening for the negotiations. It is a decision that will haunt everyone involved. When word reaches King's Landing that Aerys has been seized, the realm explodes. Tywin Lannister, as Hand, must manage the crisis. He surrounds Duskendale with overwhelming force. Lord Daenerys holds the king in his castle, threatening to kill him if attacked. A standoff develops that lasts for 6 months, half a year, while the king of the 7 kingdoms is held prisoner by a minor lord in a minor town. Gerold spends those months in agony. His king is captive, possibly being tortured, and he is not there. The Lord Commander's place is beside the monarch, but he was left behind, and now all he can do is wait while Tywin and the small council debate how to rescue Aerys without getting him killed. Barristan Selmy solves the problem. He volunteers to infiltrate Duskendale alone and free the king. It is incredibly dangerous, likely suicidal, but Barristan believes it can be done. Gerold wants to go himself, but Tywin argues that the Lord Commander is too valuable to risk. Barristan is younger, faster, more expendable if things go wrong. So Gerold watches Barristan ride out, knowing he is sending his brother to probable death, and he waits. Days pass with no word. Then a rider comes with news. Barristan succeeded. He fought his way into the castle, killed the guards holding Aerys, and escaped with the king. Lord Daenerys Darklan and his wife are captured. The crisis is over, but the cost is just beginning to be counted. Aerys returns to King's Landing, changed. 6 months of captivity have broken something fundamental in his mind. He was locked in darkness, threatened daily, possibly tortured. His captors played games with his sanity, making him believe rescue would never come, that Tywin had abandoned him, that everyone had abandoned him. The paranoia takes root deep. Aerys begins to suspect everyone. If Lord Darklan could betray him, anyone could trust becomes impossible. He sees plots everywhere, enemies in every shadow. The charming young king disappears, replaced by something fearful and cruel. He executes Lord Darklan and his entire family. Not just Daenerys and Sarala, but cousins, uncles, anyone with a drop of Darklan blood. The brutality is shocking, necessary perhaps to make an example, but taken too far, and the king clearly enjoys it. The screams of the condemned seem to give him satisfaction. Aerys begins to let himself go physically, stops cutting his hair and nails, grows them long as a statement, though of what no one is sure. he becomes obsessed with wildfire, that dangerous green flame the pyromancers create. Wants it used more, wants to see things burn. The fascination is unhealthy, disturbing. Worst of all, he turns on Queen Rhaella. Their marriage was never based on love, just duty and Targaryen tradition. But after Duskendale, Aerys begins to abuse her, physically and emotionally. His treatment of his sister-wife becomes a source of shame for everyone who witnesses it. Gerold sees all of this, stands guard while it happens, and the oath prevents him from doing anything. The king is sovereign. What he does to his wife is his right. What he does to his enemies is his prerogative. The king's guard serves the crown, not justice, not morality, just the crown. It is the first time Gerold truly understands what Duncan the Tall warned him about all those years ago. You will see things you cannot stop. Now he sees them. Every day, every night, the good king he swore to protect is disappearing, replaced by someone darker. And all Gerold can do is watch and maintain his post, and tell himself the oath matters more than his conscience. The realm begins to suffer. Aerys makes increasingly erratic decisions. Tywin tries to moderate them, but the king resents his hand's competence more than ever. The friendship that defined the early reign has rotted completely. Aerys sees Tywin as a threat now, someone who wants to steal his glory, someone who thinks himself better than the king. Gerold speaks to Tywin privately. One day after a particularly difficult small council session, he was not always like this. Tywin's green eyes are cold. He was always like this. Duskendale simply removed the mask. Can nothing be done? I am Hand of the King, Lord Commander, not Hand of the Realm. I serve at his pleasure, and that pleasure grows thinner every day. When it breaks entirely, I will return to Casterly Rock. But you do not have that option. Your oath is for life. The words hit like a hammer. Tywin can leave if it becomes unbearable. Gerold cannot. He is bound absolutely to a king who is descending into madness, and there is no honorable escape. The White Bull returns to his duties, the weight of the white cloak heavier than it has ever been. He has served 3 kings now. One died in fire, one faded quietly, and the third is going mad while Gerold must stand beside him, protecting the monster, enabling the cruelty, trapped by oaths that seemed noble when he first swore them. Duncan the Tall prepared him for many things, but not this, never this. The years that followed Duskendale transformed daily life for the Kingsguard into a kind of waking nightmare. Gerold and his brothers must stand witness to atrocities that would shame any civilized realm. But the white cloak means more than protecting the king's body. It means protecting his secrets, his privacy, his sovereignty. Even when that sovereignty is used to inflict horror, Viserys develops a taste for burning people alive, not clean executions, not the swift justice of a headsman's blade. Fire. He has criminals dragged before the Iron Throne, and sentences them to death by wildfire. The pyromancers are always present now, always ready with their pots of green flame that burns hotter than dragon fire. Gerold stands in the throne room while men scream. The sound is worse than anything he heard in war. Soldiers scream when they are wounded, but it is usually brief. These men burn for minutes that feel like hours. The smell of cooking flesh fills the hall. The king watches with bright eyes, laughing sometimes, calling out encouragement to the flames. "Burn them all," Aerys mutters during these executions. "Burn them all." The phrase becomes a kind of mantra. Gerold hears it constantly, during audiences, during private moments, the king whispering to himself about burning enemies, burning traitors, burning the entire city if necessary. The obsession with wildfire consumes him. Queen Rhaella suffers most. The king's treatment of her goes beyond cruelty into territory that has no name. After each burning, Aerys seeks out his wife. What happens in the royal chambers is known to the king's guard because they stand outside the doors. They hear everything. The queen's cries, the sounds of violence. The aftermath when servants find her bruised and bleeding. Gerold stands outside those doors more than once. His fist clenches on his sword. Every instinct screams at him to intervene, to kick down the door and stop what is happening. To protect the queen who is innocent of any crime except being married to a madman. But the oath prevents it. The king is sovereign. What he does in his own chambers is his business. The king's guard protects the king, not from the king. The law is clear, even if morality is screaming in protest. One night, Arthur Dane stands the post outside the royal chambers. Gerold finds him afterward, and the sword of the morning's face is grey. Arthur, who faced death without flinching in the stepstones. Arthur, who is the finest knight in the realm. Arthur looks destroyed. "I heard everything," Arthur says quietly. "Every moment, every cry for help, and I did nothing." "The oath," Gerold begins, but Arthur cuts him off. "I know the oath. I swore it same as you. But Lord Commander, what does it mean if keeping our honor requires us to enable this?" Gerold has no answer, because Arthur is asking the question that haunts all of them. If duty demands you protect evil, participate in cruelty through inaction, stand guard while innocents suffer, what does honor mean? Is it just a word used to justify complicity? The other King's Guard struggle equally. Prince Lewin Martell is furious about how Princess Elia is treated. She is Dornish, married to Prince Rhaegar, mother to royal grandchildren. She deserves respect and honor. Instead, Aerys openly insults her heritage and appearance, implies she is unsuitable for his son, ignores his grandchildren, except to mock them. Barristan the Bold, whose defining characteristic is courage, finds himself paralyzed by duty. He would charge any enemy without hesitation. But standing silent while the king commits atrocities requires a different kind of courage. The courage to betray your own conscience in service to a vow. Jonathan Darry and Oswell Went maintain stoic faces, but the strain shows. They are soldiers, not politicians or philosophers. They signed up to fight the king's enemies and protect the royal family. They did not expect to become accessories to a tyrant's crimes. Tywin Lannister endures his hand for years, trying to minimize the damage. When Aerys wants to burn a dozen men for minor offenses, Tywin negotiates it down to 3. When the king plans elaborate cruelties, the hand finds ways to delay or modify them. It is exhausting work with no glory. The realm credits Tywin with whatever prosperity remains while blaming Aerys for the atrocities. The king hates him for it. Then comes the tourney at Harrenhal. The year of the false spring, 281. The greatest tourney in living memory, sponsored by Lord Went. Every knight of note attends. Every great house sends representatives. It is meant to be a celebration, a moment when the realm can forget its troubles and enjoy pageantry and competition. All 7 King's Guard are present, a rare occurrence. Gerold sees men he has not seen in years, friends from the War of the Ninepenny Kings, now lords themselves, young knights eager to make their names, and among them Sir Jaime Lannister, Tywin's son, 15 years old. Already knighted for valor in suppressing the Kingswood Brotherhood. Handsome, talented, idealistic, everything a young knight should be. Aerys sees Jaime too, and in a moment of vindictive brilliance makes a decision that will hurt Tywin more than any insult or policy disagreement. He names Jaime Lannister to the King's Guard. The pronouncement comes during the tourney. Jaime is stunned. The realm applauds. It is a great honor for one so young. But Tywin understands immediately what Aerys has done. By taking Jaime into the King's Guard, the king has stolen Tywin's heir, The son who was supposed to inherit Casterly Rock and continue the Lannister line is now sworn to celibacy and eternal service. It is a master stroke of cruelty disguised as honor. Gerold performs the ceremony. He drapes the white cloak across Jaime's shoulders and sees pure joy in the boy's eyes. Jaime believes this is the greatest moment of his life. He has achieved at 15 what most knights never achieve at all. He will serve beside legends, Arthur Dayne, Barristan Selmy, the White Bull himself. Gerold knows what the boy does not, that the white cloak is about to become a prison. That Jaime's idealism will be ground down into bitter cynicism. That this moment of triumph is actually a trap closing around a young knight who deserves better. That evening, when Aerys orders Jaime to return to King's Landing instead of remaining at Harrenhal to compete in the tourney, Gerold offers to go in his place. Let the boy have his moment of glory. Let him compete and celebrate with his peers. The Lord Commander can guard the Queen and Prince. Aerys refuses. He wants Jaime specifically, wants to separate the boy from his father, wants Tywin to watch his son ride away into service while he can do nothing to prevent it. Tywin resigns as Hand within days. After nearly 20 years of service, after transforming the realm's governance, after enduring countless insults and betrayals, this final cruelty is too much. The Lion of Casterly Rock returns to the Westerlands. The realm loses the only man who was keeping Aerys's madness somewhat contained. Jaime arrives in King's Landing, full of excitement and pride. Gerold takes him aside on the second day. The boy needs to understand what he has joined. The vows you swore are absolute, Gerold tells him. There are no exceptions. No moment when you can choose conscience over duty. You serve the king, not justice, not the realm, the king. Jaime nods, not really understanding. He is too young, too idealistic. He thinks serving the king and serving justice are the same thing. Within weeks, he learns differently. Ebresi summons Lord Rickard Stark and his son Brandon to answer charges of treason. Brandon had ridden to King's Landing months earlier, demanding that Prince Rhaegar face him for supposedly abducting Lyanna Stark. He was arrested for threatening the Crown Prince. Now his father comes to answer for his son's crime. What Aerys does to them is beyond savagery. Lord Rickard is suspended from the rafters of the throne room in his armor. The pyromancers light fires beneath him. They roast the Lord of Winterfell alive inside his own armor, cooking him slowly while he screams. Brandon is fitted with a leather cord around his neck attached to a device. A sword is placed just out of reach. As his father burns, Brandon struggles to reach the blade to save him, but every movement tightens the cord. He strangles himself to death trying to rescue Lord Rickard. Gerold stands in that throne room, watches the entire execution. Lord Rickard's screams echo off the walls. Brandon's desperate struggles grow weaker as he chokes. The smell of burning flesh mingles with the coppery tang of blood, and King Aerys sits on the Iron Throne laughing. Afterward, Gerold finds Jaime. The boy is pale, shaking. His eyes have the look of someone who has seen something that cannot be unseen. They were innocent, Jaime says. Brandon came demanding justice for his sister. Lord Rickard came to defend his son, and the king murdered them. Yes, we stood there and watched. Yes. Why didn't we stop it? This is the moment. The question every Kingsguard eventually asks. Gerold gives the answer that Duncan the Tall gave him. The answer that has sustained him through years of horror. You swore a vow to guard the king, not to judge him. Jaime stares at him. That's it? That's your answer? We watch innocent men die because of a vow. The vow is everything. Without it, we are nothing. We are swords that serve whoever pays most. We are mercenaries with fancy titles. The oath is what makes us different, what makes us honorable, and honor means keeping your word, even when it costs everything. What kind of honor is that? Gerold meets the boy's eyes. The only kind worth having. The absolute kind. The kind that does not bend with convenience or break when tested. You wear the white cloak now. That cloak has standards. You will meet them or you will be nothing. Jain turns away. He does not argue further. But Gerold can see that something has broken in him. The idealistic boy who joined the Kingsguard is dying, being replaced by someone harder, someone who understands that honor is not noble or glorious. It is a cage that traps you into complicity with things you despise. Gerold knows because he lives in that cage every day, has lived in it for years now. And there is no escape except death or the king's release. Neither seems likely. The White Bull returns to his duties, stands his posts, attends the small council, cards the king who is a monster, and tells himself that keeping the oath matters more than his soul. He almost believes it. The executions of Rickard and Brandon Stark are the spark that ignites the realm. Within days, Jon Arryn, Lord of the Eyrie and Warden of the East, calls his banners. Aerys demanded that he execute his two wards, Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon. Jon Arryn refuses. For the first time in living memory, a great lord openly defies the Iron Throne. Robert Baratheon declares war. He claims the Stark's cause as his own. Lyanna Stark was his betrothed, taken by Prince Rhaegar. Her father and brother were murdered by a mad king. Justice demands blood. The Stag of Storm's End will have it. Eddard Stark joins him. The quiet wolf of Winterfell, now Lord Stark after his father's and brother's deaths, rides south with northern armies at his back. The North remembers, and the North does not forgive. Hoster Tully adds the Riverlands to the rebellion. His daughters marry the leaders of the uprising. Catelyn weds Eddard Stark. Lysa marries Jon Arryn. The four great regions unite against the crown. Half the kingdom rises in rebellion. Gerold watches the realm tear itself apart from his position in King's Landing. The war that everyone knew was coming has finally arrived, and it is Aerys' fault, not entirely. No, Rhaegar's actions with Lyanna Stark contributed. The complex web of insults and grievances going back years played a role, but the immediate cause, the match that lit the fire, was a mad king burning innocent men for entertainment. The Kingsguard divides to meet the crisis. Some must stay in King's Landing to protect the royal family. Others must take to the field with the loyalist armies. Gerold assigns duties carefully, knowing that every choice matters. Send the wrong man to the wrong place, and the war could be lost. Prince Lewin Martell leads the Dornish forces northward. 10,000 spears march to defend the dynasty that has given Dorne a queen and 2 royal grandchildren. Sir Jonathor Darry rides out with other elements of the royal army. Barristan Selmy takes command of troops rallying to the king's cause. Gerold remains in King's Landing. His place is beside the king. But it means watching from a distance while his brothers fight and die. Hearing news of battles days or weeks after they happen. Wondering if the next raven will bring word of another Kingsguard dead. The war does not go well for the royalists at first. Robert Baratheon proves to be a warrior of terrifying capability. He wins engagement after engagement, his warhammer crushing loyalist lines. But then Lord Randall Tarly defeats him at Ashford, driving Robert north wounded and separated from his allies. For a moment, it seems the tide might turn. Lord John Connington, the new hand of the king, pursues Robert to a town called Stony Sept. He has overwhelming force. He corners the rebel in a small town. Victory should be certain. But Connington hesitates. He wants personal glory. Wants to face Robert in single combat, rather than simply burning the town and killing everyone in it. That hesitation proves fatal. Eddard Stark and Hoster Tully arrive with armies. The Battle of the Bells erupts in the streets. Robert emerges from hiding and turns the battle into a rout. Connington escapes, but the Loyalist army is shattered. Aerys strips Connington of his lands and titles, exiles him in disgrace. The king finally realizes too late that Robert Baratheon is not just another rebel to be crushed. He is an existential threat. The greatest danger to House Targaryen since the Blackfyre rebellions, and Prince Rhaegar is nowhere to be found. The Crown Prince disappeared with Lyanna Stark months ago. No one knows where he is. The dynasty's best hope, the warrior prince who should be leading the armies, has vanished at the moment he is most needed. Aerys sends Gerold to find him. The Lord Commander of the Kingsguard receives direct orders from the king. Find Prince Rhaegar. Bring him back to lead the Loyalist forces. Do not return without him. Gerold obeys. He has always obeyed. He rides south with a small escort, following rumors and whispers. Rhaegar was seen in Dawn. The prince went to the Red Mountains. There is a tower there, isolated and forgotten. The journey takes weeks. Gerold pushes hard, knowing that every day he is away, the war continues without the prince. He crosses into Dawn, rides through desert and rock, following fragmentary information toward a place he is not certain exists. Then he finds it, a tower in the mountains. Small, ancient, unremarkable, but outside stand two white cloaks, Sir Arthur Dayne and Sir Oswell Went, the finest knight in the realm, and one of the most loyal. They have been here the entire time, guarding something. Gerold dismounts. Arthur greets him with relief and sorrow mixed. Lord Commander, we hoped you would come. Where is the prince? Arthur gestures to the tower. Inside, Gerold finds Rhaegar with Lyanna Stark. She is heavily pregnant, possibly already in labor. This was no kidnapping. This was something else. A choice they made together. A prophecy Rhaegar believes in with absolute conviction. The prince explains quickly. The dragon must have 3 heads. The prince that was promised. The song of ice and fire. Prophecy and ancient texts and mystical nonsense that Gerold does not fully understand or care about. What matters is that Rhaegar has been here with Lyanna while the kingdom burns. You must return, Gerold says. The king commands it. The realm needs you. Without you leading the armies, we will lose this war. Rhaegar knows. He has known all along what his absence would cost, but he believed this was more important, that what happens in this tower matters more than any political war. He believed wrong, perhaps, or perhaps he is right in ways that will not be clear for decades. Either way, he will return now and face Robert Baratheon at last. But first, he extracts promises from Gerold, from Arthur, from Oswell. Lyanna must be protected. The child must be kept safe. Whatever happens in the war, whatever becomes of the dynasty, these 3 knights must stay here and guard what matters most. Gerold hesitates. His duty is to the king. Viserys commanded him to bring Rhaegar back, and he is following that order. But Rhaegar is the crown prince, the rightful heir, and he is giving a direct command to 3 members of his Kingsguard to stay here, to protect this tower and its secrets. If you fall, Gerold asks quietly, what then? Then the child becomes everything, Rhaegar replies, and you 3 become his only shield. Promise me, Gerold. Promise me, all of you. They promise. What else can they do? Rhaegar is their prince. More than that, he is the best of them. The hope of the dynasty. If he believes this matters, who are they to refuse? Rhaegar rides north. He will gather the loyalist armies, face Robert Baratheon at a place that will be called the Trident, and Gerold knows, with a certainty of long experience, that the prince is riding to his death. Rhaegar is a capable warrior, but Robert is rage and fury incarnate. The stag will kill the dragon. It is inevitable. So Gerold, Arthur, and Oswell remain at the tower. 3 of the 7 Kingsguard, the finest knights in the realm, standing guard in the middle of nowhere while the kingdom tears itself apart. Lyanna labors. The child is born. A boy, healthy and strong. The 3rd head of the dragon, if Rhaegar's prophecies mean anything. News arrives in fragments. Rhaegar dead at the Trident. Robert's hammer crushing his chest. The Loyalist army broken. Tywin Lannister marching on King's Landing with an army claiming loyalty. But everyone knows the Lannisters are opportunists. The war is lost. The dynasty is falling. Then the worst news. King's Landing sacked. Andras dead. Murdered by Jaime Lannister. The youngest Kingsguard, the idealistic boy Gerold tried to teach, broke his oath and killed the king he was sworn to protect. Princess Elia and her children butchered by Lannister men. Robert Baratheon crowned on the Iron Throne. The Targaryen dynasty ended after 300 years. Gerold stands outside the tower and looks at his brothers. Arthur Dayne with Dawn across his back. Oswell went checking his armor. 2 of the finest knights who ever lived. And inside a baby boy who might be the last Targaryen, the last dragon. The secret they have been commanded to protect. "We should go," Oswell says. Bend the knee. The war is over. "The king is dead," Arthur replies. But there is another king now, in that tower. Gerold understands what Arthur means. If Aerys is dead and Rhaegar is dead, the succession passes to Rhaegar's children. Aegon and Rhaenys are murdered. That leaves only this child, this baby born in a tower in Dawn. By law, by tradition, by every principle of succession, he is now the king. And the Kingsguard serves the king, not Robert Baratheon, not the usurper who took the throne by force. The true king, even if he is an infant, even if the realm does not know he exists, even if protecting him means certain death. "We stay," Gerold decides. "We gave our word to Rhaegar, and the boy is our king now." The Kingsguard does not flee. So they stay, 3 knights in white, guarding a tower, waiting for the end they know is coming, because eventually Eddard Stark will arrive searching for his sister, and when he does, they will not let him pass, cannot let him pass, not without a fight. The oath demands it, honor demands it, duty demands it, even though it means they will die here, far from home, in service to a king who is only days old and will never know their names. But that is what the white cloak means, service unto death, loyalty absolute, the vow kept no matter the cost. Gerold Hightower watches the sun set over the Red Mountains and knows he will never see it rise again. This is where his 50 years of service end, in blood and sand, defending a secret, keeping a promise. It is perhaps the only truly honorable thing he has done since Aerys went mad, and it will kill him. The White Bull accepts this and waits for death to find him. The tower has no name when they first arrive. Later people will call it the Tower of Joy, though Gerold finds that name bitterly ironic. There is no joy here, only duty and waiting and the certainty of death. The structure itself is unremarkable. Ancient stone worn smooth by wind and sand, a single entrance, narrow windows that let in light but offer little view of the surrounding terrain. It was built centuries ago, perhaps as a way station or a minor lord's retreat. Now it is simply forgotten. A relic in the Red Mountains that no one remembers and no one visits. Perfect for hiding a secret. The days blur together after Rhaegar leaves. Gerold, Arthur, and Oswell establish a routine because routine is what soldiers do when there is nothing else. They take turns standing watch, patrol the perimeter, check the supplies that Rhaegar arranged before departing. Care for Lyanna Stark, who grows weaker after the birth. The child thrives. That at least is something. The boy is healthy and strong, crying with impressive volume when hungry or uncomfortable. Arthur, surprisingly, has a gift with infants. The Sword of the Morning, the deadliest knight in Westeros, rocks the baby with gentle hands and hums Dornish lullabies. Gerold watches this and thinks about all the children Arthur will never have, all the families, each of them sacrificed for the White Cloak. Lyanna dies within days of giving birth. The fever takes her despite everything they try. She extracts promises from them in her final hours. Protect my son. Tell Ned the truth when he comes. Make sure the boy knows his father loved him. They promise because what else can they do? She is dying, and they are the only witnesses to her final moments. They build a cairn for her, from stones taken from the base of the tower. It is not elaborate. 3 knights are not masons, but it is respectful. They lay her to rest with as much dignity as circumstances allow. Arthur speaks words over the grave. Oswell stands with head bowed. Gerold thinks about how this entire catastrophe could have been avoided if Rhaegar had been less obsessed with prophecy and more concerned with political reality. But that is hindsight, and it helps nothing now. The baby needs care constantly. None of them are prepared for this. They are warriors, not nursemaids, but they manage. Take turns feeding him the milk they have, changing him, keeping him clean and safe. It is absurd in a way that would be funny if the situation were not so dire. The finest knights in the 7 kingdoms playing nursemaid to an infant while the realm burns. News arrives sporadically. A rider appears every few weeks with information, then disappears again. The Battle of the Trident happened. Rhaegar fell exactly as Gerold knew he would. Robert's warhammer crushed the dragon on his breastplate and the chest beneath. The rubies from the armor scattered in the river, giving the crossing a new name. Ruby Ford, where the last hope of the dynasty died in the water. The loyalist army broke after Rhaegar's death. Without the prince to rally around, the cause collapsed. Lords who might have fought to the end instead sued for peace or fled. The rebellion became inevitable victory for Robert Baratheon. Then Tywin Lannister appeared outside King's Landing claiming to support the crown. Aerys, in his paranoia and madness, refused to let him enter at first. But Grand Maester Pycelle convinced the king that Tywin was loyal. The gates opened, and the Lannisters sacked the city. The atrocities that followed make even these hardened knights feel sick. Princess Elia raped and murdered. Her children, Rhaegar's children, killed with brutal efficiency. Little Rhaenys dragged from under a bed and stabbed dozens of times. Baby Aegon smashed against a wall until his head was unrecognizable. And Jaime Lannister, the youngest of the Kingsguard, killed King Aerys in the throne room. That last detail hits Gerold hardest. Jaime broke his oath, killed the king he was sworn to protect. It is the ultimate betrayal of everything the White Cloak represents. And yet, Gerold cannot entirely condemn him. Aerys was planning to burn the entire city, kill 500,000 people with wildfire hidden throughout King's Landing. Jaime stopped that, saved countless lives by breaking his vow. Does that make him a hero or a traitor? Both? Neither? Gerold does not know anymore. The lines between honor and pragmatism have blurred beyond recognition. We could leave, Oswell says one evening after they put the baby to sleep. Bend a knee to Robert. Explain about the child. Maybe he would show mercy. Arthur shakes his head. You know he would not. Robert loved Lyanna. Finding out she bore Rhaegar's child willingly would destroy him. He would kill the boy to erase the proof that she chose the dragon over the stag. Then we take the child somewhere safe, Oswell suggests. A source, the free cities. Raise him in secret until he is old enough to reclaim his throne. We swore to guard this place. Gerold reminds them. Rhaegar commanded us to stay, to protect the child here. Rhaegar is dead. The command died with him. The child is king now, the last legitimate Targaryen. We serve the king. That has not changed. They fall silent, because Gerold is right, and they know it. If Aerys is dead, and Rhaegar is dead, and Aegon and Rhaenys are dead, succession passes to this infant. By every law of the realm, he is king of the 7 kingdoms. That Robert holds the throne is irrelevant to the Kingsguard. They serve the rightful king, not the usurper who took power by conquest. So they stay, not because they expect to win, not because they think the dynasty can be restored, but because the oath demands it. The vow they swore is absolute. It does not bend with changing circumstances. It does not break when keeping it becomes suicidal. The waiting is the hardest part. Knowing death is coming, but not when. Days pass, weeks, the child grows. Summer heat beats down on the tower. Nights bring cold that seeps into old bones and injured joints. Gerold's hand, wounded years ago by Olyma's arrow, aches constantly. Arthur's knees pop when he stands after sitting too long. Oswell develops a cough that will not go away. They are getting old, all 3 of them. This is not how they imagined ending. They should die in battle or of old age in their beds at the Red Keep. Not here, not in a forgotten tower, guarding a secret that might die with them. But perhaps this is better. Perhaps dying for something pure, protecting an innocent child, is preferable to what came before. Gerold spent years watching Aretas commit atrocities, standing guard while innocents burned, enabling evil through inaction. At least here, at the end, he is doing something that matters, something clean, protecting life rather than serving death. Arthur seems to have made similar peace. The Sword of the Morning spends hours with dawn, the legendary blade forged from a fallen star. He sharpens it to an impossible edge, polishes the metal until it gleams white. The sword is ready for its last battle. "I wish I had died at the Trident," Arthur says one night. "Alongside Rhaegar, that would have been a worthy end." "This is worthy too," Gerold replies. "We protect the king. That is our purpose. It always has been. The king is 3 months old and does not know we exist. That changes nothing. He is still our king." Oswell joins them, sitting heavily on the stone. When Eddard Stark comes, and he will come, what do we tell him? Gerold has thought about this. The truth. His sister loved Rhaegar, bore him a son, died asking us to protect the child. He has a right to know. And then we fight him. Yes, all of us will die. You know that. I know. For a baby who will likely die anyway once we fall. Perhaps. But we will have kept our oath, died in service to our king. There are worse ends. Arthur laughs, but there is no humor in it. The singers will make songs about this. 3 knights of the Kingsguard dying in the desert for a lost cause. They will call us fools or heroes depending on who wins the throne in the end. Let them, Gerold says. We did our duty. That is enough. The conversations become repetitive after a while. There is only so much to say when you are waiting to die. They talk about their pasts, the choices that led them here, the oaths they swore, and the price of keeping them. They remember fallen brothers, Duncan the Tall, Prince Lewin Martell, who died at the Trident, Jonathor Darry, killed in King's Landing. The Kingsguard is nearly gone. Soon it will be entirely gone. The child crawls now, exploring the tower's single room with the fearless curiosity of infants. He pulls himself up on furniture, makes sounds that might one day become words, and 3 of the deadliest men alive watch over him with devotion that would surprise anyone who knows them only by reputation. This is what the white cloak means in its purest form. Not glory or recognition, not power or prestige, just service, protecting those who cannot protect themselves, keeping oaths when keeping them costs everything. One morning, Gerold wakes before dawn and climbs to the tower's highest point. From here he can see the red mountains stretching in all directions, beautiful and desolate, a fitting place for an ending. He thinks about Old Town, about the boy he was who put on white and thought he understood what that meant, about Duncan the Tall teaching him that honor was more than just following orders, about the years watching Aerys descend into madness while the oath prevented intervention, about Darin breaking his vow and saving a city, about Rhaegar chasing prophecies to his death, and about this tower, this forgotten place where 3 knights will make their final stand for a king who cannot speak or walk or understand what they sacrifice for him. The sun rises over the mountains, painting the sky red and gold. Gerold watches it and wonders if this is the last sunrise he will see. Probably not. They have been here for months and no one has come. But eventually someone will, and when they do, the waiting ends. The white bull descends from the tower. His brothers are awake, preparing the morning meal for the child. Another day begins, another day of waiting, another day of waiting, another day closer to the end. But Gerold Hightower is at peace. For the first time in years, since before Duskendale, since before Aerys went mad, he feels that the white cloak means what it is supposed to mean, that his service has purpose, that the oath is worth keeping. Whatever comes next, he will face it without regret. He is the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard. He protects his king, and he will do so until death releases him from that duty. The waiting continues, but it will not last forever. The dust cloud appears on the horizon. Just after midday, 7 riders moving fast across the desert. Gerold spots them first from his post atop the tower. He watches for a moment, calculating distance and speed, then descends to alert his brothers. They are here. Arthur looks up from where he sits with the child. Oswell stops sharpening his blade. Neither needs to ask who. They have been expecting this for months. The only question was when. How many? Arthur asks. 7. Better odds than we hoped for, Oswell says with dark humor. Only 7 against 3. They prepare in silence. Check their armor, test their weapons. Arthur straps Dawn across his back, the pale blade catching sunlight through the narrow windows. Gerold flexes his wounded hand, working out the stiffness. The old injury aches more than usual. Perhaps it knows this is the last battle. The child fusses, sensing the tension. Arthur picks him up one final time, looks into those infant eyes that will never remember this moment, never know the names of the men who died for him. Your father believed you were important, Arthur tells him softly, important enough to die for. I hope he was right. He places the child in his makeshift bed, closes the tower door. When they walk out to meet the riders, the baby will be alone inside. If all 3 of them fall, the child's fate is uncertain. But they cannot think about that now. They can only do their duty and hope it is enough. The 3 knights emerge from the tower as the riders approach. The sun is bright and merciless. Heat radiates from the sand and stone. Gerold, Arthur, and Oswell stand in a line, white cloaks stark against the brown landscape. 3 legends in white facing 7 men on horseback. The riders slow as they near, dismount at a respectful distance. Gerold recognizes the leader immediately. Eddard Stark, now Lord of Winterfell, younger than Gerold expected. The weight of his father's and brother's deaths sits visibly on his shoulders. Beside him is a small man with unusual features, Howland Reed of the Neck. The others are northern lords and knights, loyal to Stark. Silence stretches between the two groups. 7 men who came to rescue a sister and recover bodies. 3 men who know there is no rescue, only reckoning. Eddard speaks first. I looked for you on the Trident. Gerold's reply is simple. We were not there. The young lord's face shows confusion and perhaps accusation. These 3 knights, the finest the realm has ever seen, were absent from the battle that decided the war. Where were they? While Rhaegar died, while the dynasty fell, where were they when their skills might have changed everything? Woe to the usurper if you had been, Ned says quietly. It is acknowledgement, respect even from an enemy, recognition that these 3 could have altered the outcome at the Trident, that their absence was significant. Gerold accepts the compliment for what it is. When King's Landing fell, Ser Jaime slew your king with a golden sword, and I wondered where you were. The accusation is mild but clear. You ask where we were, but where were you when your king died? Each side has questions the other cannot answer. Each side made choices that led to this moment. Far away, or Aerys would yet sit the Iron Throne, and our false brother would burn in 7 hells. Ned's voice carries bitterness. The Mad King's crimes are known. No one mourns Aerys, not even his own Kingsguard. I came down on Storm's End to lift the siege after the Trident. Lords Tyrell and Redwyne bowed their knees and swore fealty. I was certain you would be among them. Our knees do not bend easily, Gerold replies. Sir Willem Darry fled to Dragonstone with your queen and Prince Viserys. I thought you might have sailed with him. Sir Willem is a good man and true, Arthur says, his first words of the exchange, but not of the Kingsguard. The Kingsguard does not flee. Then or now, Oswell adds. Ned's face shows the struggle. He came here for his sister to bring Lyanna home. But these 3 knights stand between him and the tower, and they are not moving. We swore a vow, Gerold says simply. The finality in those words changes something. Ned understands that this cannot end peacefully, that these 3 will not surrender, will not step aside, will not break their oaths, no matter how reasonable the request. The war is over. My sister is in that tower. I want to bring her home. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come, Gerold says. It is the formal farewell knights give before battle, an acknowledgement that words have failed and only steel remains. There are 7 of us and 3 of you, one of the Northmen points out. Arthur's hand moves to Dorne's hilt, then it is an even fight. The words should be boastful, arrogant, but Arthur Dane says them with simple confidence. He believes it, they all believe it. 3 of the finest knights ever to live against 7 capable warriors. The odds are not as clear as numbers suggest. Ned makes one final attempt. I do not want to kill you, sir. Yet here we stand, Gerold replies. The moment balances on a knife's edge. Then Howland Reed moves. The small Cranachman's hand drops to his weapon. That tiny motion breaks the paralysis. Steel whispers as swords leave scabbards, and the last battle of the Kingsguard begins. The Northmen attack together, coordinated, sensible. 7 against 3 requires tactics, not individual heroics. They move to surround the white cloaks, to isolate and overwhelm them one at a time. But Gerold, Arthur, and Oswell have fought together for years. They know each other's movements by instinct. Arthur takes the center, dawn flashing white in the sun. Oswell guards the left. Gerold holds the right. The 3 form a triangle, protecting each other's backs. Arthur is magnificent. Dawn moves almost too fast to follow. The legendary blade cuts through the air with a sound like singing. A Northman goes down in the first exchange, Arthur's sword opening his throat. Another falls moments later. dawn piercing through mail and leather like cloth. Oswell fights with brutal efficiency, not graceful like Arthur, but devastatingly effective. His blade finds gaps in armor. His movements are economical, wasting no energy. A third Northman dies to Oswell's steel, blood spraying across sand. Gerold fights with 50 years of experience guiding every motion. His wounded hand slows him, but does not stop him. He reads his opponents, anticipates their attacks, counters with precision born of endless practice. A fourth Northman falls, Gerold's blade taking him in the chest. But 7 against 3, even with skill imbalanced, is mathematics. The Northmen keep coming. For every one that falls, the others press harder. They are brave men fighting for their lord. They do not break or flee, even as their companions die. Oswell takes a blade in the side. His armor turns most of it, but blood flows. He stumbles but stays on his feet, swinging hard to drive back his attacker. The Northern Knight falls, but Oswell is wounded now, weakening. Arthur faces 3 men simultaneously. Even the Sword of the Morning cannot be everywhere. Dawn kills another Northman, but a blade slips past his guard, cuts deep into his sword arm. Arthur switches hands without hesitation, continuing the fight left-handed, still deadly. Still the finest swordsman alive, but injured now, bleeding. Gerold holds his position. An older Northman, skilled and cautious, probes his defenses, looking for the weakness. Finding it in the damaged hand that cannot grip as strongly as it should. A quick beat, and Gerold's sword shifts. Not much, just enough. The Northman's blade finds the gap in his armor, slides between the plates, pierces deep. Pain explodes through Gerold's side. He gasps but does not fall, cannot fall. Not yet. He drives forward instead, using his weight and experience. His blade finds flesh. The Northman dies, but Gerold is badly wounded now. Blood soaks his white cloak red. Only 3 men remain standing on both sides. Eddard Stark, Howland Reed, 1 Northern Knight, against Arthur, Oswell, and Gerold. All 6 wounded, all exhausted, but none yielding. Oswell goes down next, surrounded, fighting to the last breath. He takes another Northman with him, but succumbs to his wounds, falls to his knees, then onto his face. The Black Bat of Harrenhal dies far from home, in service to a king he never met. Arthur and Gerold stand alone now, back to back. Surrounded by bodies, the sand beneath their feet is dark with blood. Dawn still gleams white in Arthur's left hand. Gerold's blade is notched and stained, but he grips it firmly despite the agony in his side. Eddard Stark steps forward. Howland Reed moves to flank. The last Northman circles to the other side. 3 against 2, and the 2 are wounded badly. Arthur lunges. Dawn sweeps in an arc of white fire. Howland Reed ducks beneath it, comes up inside Arthur's reach. What happens next is confused. Movement too fast. A blade where it should not be. Arthur Dane, the Sword of the Morning, the finest knight in the realm, falls to his knees. Dawn drops from his hand. He looks surprised more than anything else. "Tell Ashara," he begins. But the words die with him. The greatest swordsman of his generation bleeds out in the sand. Gerold is alone, 3 against 1. Indeed, exhausted. Every breath is agony. His vision blurs from blood loss, but he is still Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, still the White Bull, and he will not yield. He attacks, not a desperate charge, but a measured assault. 50 years of skill in every movement. He drives at Eddard Stark, forcing the younger man back. Their blades meet with ringing impacts. Once, twice. Gerold's technique is flawless even now, but his body is failing. The Northern Knight strikes from the side. Gerold parries, but the impact jars his wounded side. He stumbles. His guard drops for just a moment, just long enough. Eddard's blade finds his chest, punches through armor and flesh. Gerold feels the steel in his lungs, tastes copper, his legs give out, and he falls to his knees. The white cloak pools around him, red and white, blood and purity. The contradiction of everything he has been, everything he has done. He looks up at the tower. Did it matter? Did any of it matter? The child is inside, alive for now. The secret is kept for this moment at least. 3 of the finest knights in history died to protect an infant who will never know their names. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps that is what honor means. Not glory or recognition. Just doing your duty, even when no one will remember. Even when it costs everything. Gerold Hightower, Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, the white bull who never broke, takes his last breath under the desert sun. His hand still grips his sword, his eyes still hold defiance. He dies as he lived, in service, in duty, in absolute devotion to an oath he kept to the very end. The 3 knights of the Kingsguard lie still. Their vigil is ended. Their watch is done, and inside the tower, a baby cries for no one left to answer. Eddard Stark stands among the bodies of 6 of his companions and 3 of the finest knights who ever lived. His leg is broken, his ribs are cracked. Only he and Howland Reed survived this fight. The cost of facing 3 Kingsguard, even at the end of a civil war, even wounded and outnumbered, was nearly absolute. He enters the tower and finds his sister in a bed of blood, dying from childbed fever, and beside her, a baby boy. Lyanna extracts a promise from her brother in her final moments, a promise about the child, about keeping a secret, about protecting Jon from a king who would kill him if the truth were known. Ned builds cairns for all of them, 8 piles of stone in the desert, 1 for each man who died here. He uses stones from the tower itself, dismantling it piece by piece. The place where secrets were kept becomes a monument to the price of keeping them. The bodies of Gerold Hightower, Arthur Dayne and Oswell Went are laid to rest with honor. Enemies they may have been, but Eddard Stark recognizes what they were, true knights. Men who kept their oaths when breaking them would have been easier, who chose death over dishonor, who stood their ground when any reasonable person would have fled. History will argue forever about whether they were heroes or fools. The answer depends entirely on who tells the story. To the victors, the ones who write the histories and sing the songs, Gerold Hightower died defending a kidnapping, protecting a woman held against her will and the bastard born of that crime. His loyalty to a fallen dynasty made him fight against justice itself. He was a stubborn old man who refused to accept that the war was over and his side had lost. Admirable perhaps in his dedication, but ultimately misguided. A knight who served the wrong king and paid the price for that service. To Targaryen loyalists, those few who survive and remember, Gerold is a saint. The Lord Commander who never broke faith, who kept his vows when everyone else abandoned the dynasty, who protected the last true king even knowing it meant certain death. His stand at the Tower of Joy represents everything noble about knighthood. Absolute loyalty, unwavering courage, duty unto death. He is proof that honor still existed in a world that had abandoned it. To the common people who know only fragments and rumors, Gerold Hightower is a name in a song. The white bull who died in the desert, one of 3 legendary knights who made a final stand for reasons most people do not fully understand. He is distant, abstract, a figure from stories rather than a real man who lived and suffered and made impossible choices. But to those who knew him, who served with him, who understood what he carried, Gerold Hightower is complicated. A man who embodied both the best and worst of what the White Cloak represents. Jaime Lannister thinks about his old Lord Commander often, the man who taught him that vows are absolute, that you serve the king without judging him. That honor means keeping your word even when it requires you to enable atrocities. Jaime broke that teaching, killed his king, saved 500,000 people by betraying everything. Gerold said the White Cloak meant, and the realm calls him Kingslayer for it, despises him for choosing conscience over oath. Would Gerold have made the same choice if he had been in King's Landing that day? If he had been the one guarding Ares when the Mad King ordered the pyromancers to burn the city? Jaime wants to believe the answer is yes, that even the White Bull would have broken his vow to prevent genocide, but he is not certain. Gerold's commitment to duty was absolute. Perhaps he would have stood guard while a city burned. Perhaps that is what true honor demands. The question has no answer. Gerold was at the Tower of Joy, not King's Landing. He never faced that choice. He died protecting an innocent child rather than enabling a murderous king. Whether that redeems his years of complicity is for others to decide. Barristan Selmy survives the war, serves Robert Baratheon as Lord Commander, because the White Cloak is for life, and Robert allows him to continue. Barristan thinks about Gerold constantly, wonders if he made the right choice by bending the knee while his Lord Commander died in defiance. Which of them honored the oath more truly? The one who died for it, or the one who lived by adapting to changing circumstances? Barristan tells himself that serving the realm matters more than serving a specific dynasty, that the Kingsguard protects the kingdom, not just the Targaryens, but he knows Gerold would disagree. The White Bull believed the oath was to the rightful king, not whoever held power. By that standard, Barristan is forsworn, a pragmatist who bent when he should have broken. Yet Barristan continues to serve with honor, protects multiple kings over the following decades, maintains the standards of the Kingsguard even in an age that no longer values them. Perhaps that is its own form of loyalty. Perhaps Gerold would understand, or perhaps he would see only compromise where absolute devotion was required. The child they died for grows up never knowing the truth. Jon Snow believes himself a bastard, Ned Stark's illegitimate son. He carries shame that is not his, bears the weight of a lie told to protect him. He joins the Night's Watch and swears oaths of his own. Eventually he learns the truth, that 3 of the greatest knights in history died to keep him safe, that his birth mattered enough for legends to sacrifice everything. Does that knowledge change anything? Make their deaths meaningful rather than tragic? Jon never asked for that burden, never wanted men to die for him. But they did, because Rhaegar believed prophecy, because Gerold believed in keeping oaths, because duty demanded it. The Tower of Joy becomes legend. Singers compose ballads about 3 knights against 7, about loyalty unto death, about honor in an age of betrayal. Most of the songs get the details wrong, turn it into something romantic rather than the desperate, bloody fight it actually was. But that is what songs do. They simplify, make sense of events that made no sense. What do we learn from Gerold Hightower's life? What lesson does his story teach? Perhaps that honor is more complicated than we want to believe. That doing the right thing is not always the same as keeping your word. That vows can trap you into complicity with evil. That absolute loyalty can be both noble and monstrous depending on what you are loyal to. Gerold served 3 kings. One good man who died pursuing impossible dreams. One cautious ruler who faded quietly. One monster who descended into madness. The same oath bound him to all 3. The same duty required the same service regardless of the king's character. Is that honor, or is it moral cowardice dressed in white? There is no easy answer. Gerold himself struggled with these questions, stood guard while innocence burned, taught Jaime that judging the king was not their place, then died protecting a baby he believed was the rightful monarch, chose the oath to Rhaegar over the oath to Aerys, selected which vow mattered more when they came into conflict. Perhaps that is the real lesson, that honor is not a clear path, that duty sometimes requires you to choose between competing obligations, that the white cloak is beautiful in principle but agonizing in practice, that good men can serve bad causes and bad men can inspire devoted loyalty, that keeping your word can be both the most honorable and most terrible thing you ever do. The Kingsguard as an institution never recovers from the Tower of Joy. 3 of the finest knights ever to wear white died in the desert for a lost cause. The survivors scattered. The brotherhood that Gerold built so carefully, that represented the peak of knighthood, ended in blood and sand far from home. Future knights will measure themselves against that standard, against Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy and the White Bull, against an ideal that may have been corrupted but never broke. The songs and stories will remember the loyalty, the dedication, the refusal to yield even facing certain death. They will forget the complexity, the moral ambiguity, the years of watching Aerys commit atrocities, the impossible position of serving honor through actions that enabled dishonor. History simplifies, turns men into symbols, makes the complicated simple and the messy clean. Gerold Hightower was not simple. He was a man who wanted to be good, who believed in duty and service, and the sanctity of oaths, who built a legendary Kingsguard and led them with distinction, who also stood silent while innocents died because the oath demanded it, who taught dangerous lessons to young knights about obedience without question, who died protecting a secret that changed the fate of kingdoms. Was he the greatest Lord Commander since Duncan the Tall? Yes. Did he keep his oaths? Absolutely. Yes. Did that make him a good man? That question is harder. Perhaps goodness is not what the white cloak is about. Perhaps it is just about duty, service, keeping your word. And perhaps that has to be enough, because the alternative is chaos. A world where every man decides for himself which oaths to keep and which to break, where honor becomes negotiable and loyalty lasts only as long as convenience. Gerold Hightower never broke, never bent, never failed the white cloak. Whether that makes him a hero or a cautionary tale is for each person to decide. The only certainty is that he lived and died by the code he believed in, that his service was absolute, that he kept his vows to the very end. And in the Red Mountains of Dawn, 8 cairns of stone mark where that service finally ended, where 3 knights made their stand, where the White Bull fell and the old order died with him. The tower is gone now, dismantled for the monuments it became, but the memory remains, the story persists, and the questions it raises about honor and duty and the cost of keeping faith have no expiration date. Gerold Hightower served for 50 years and died protecting a secret. History remembers him as the White Bull who never broke. What that means depends entirely on who you ask and what they value, glory or wisdom, loyalty or pragmatism, the oath or the consequences of keeping it. He was all of those things, and none of them. He was simply a man in a white cloak who did what he believed was right, even when right became impossible to define. Perhaps that is the only honest thing we can say about him. The Red Mountains sleep now, as they have for thousands of years. Wind moves across the sand and stone, carrying away the echoes of ancient battles. The place where 3 legends fell has returned to silence. Only the cairns remain, weathered by time, but still standing. 8 monuments to 8 men who died for different reasons, but shared the same ground in the end. Gerold Hightower's cairn sits among them, stone piled on stone. A simple grave for a complicated man. No grand tomb in the great sept of Bala, no elaborate monument in the Red Keep, just rocks in the desert, marking where the Lord Commander made his final stand. Perhaps he would have preferred it this way. The white cloak was never about glory or recognition. It was about service, duty performed away from the spotlight, standing guard while others slept, protecting people who never knew your name, doing what needed to be done because the oath demanded it. From Old Town to King's Landing to the Tower of Joy, Gerold Hightower's journey spanned 50 years and 3 kings. He joined the Kingsguard as a young man full of idealism and certainty, believed that honor was simple, that duty was clear, that wearing white made you one of the good men in a world that needed heroes. Life taught him differently, showed him that honor could trap you into terrible choices, that duty sometimes meant standing silent while evil happened, that the white cloak was both the most noble and most cursed thing a man could wear. He learned these lessons slowly, painfully, through decades of service that ground away his certainty and left only commitment to the oath itself. The nickname followed him through it all, the White Bull, named for his strength and his stubbornness. The unstoppable force that charged forward regardless of obstacle, the immovable object that held position, no matter the cost. Bull for power, white for purity. Together they captured something essential about the man. He was strong until the very end, even wounded and exhausted, even facing certain death. Gerold Hightower fought with the skill of 50 years, made Eddard Stark and his companions pay for every step forward, killed and wounded before falling. The bull never lost his strength, and he was pure in his devotion to duty. Never broke his oath, never bent his principles, never compromised on what he believed the white cloak demanded, right or wrong, wise or foolish. Gerold kept faith with the vows he swore. The white bull never yielded. History places him among the greatest knights ever to live. Duncan the Tall, Aemon the Dragon Knight, Ryam Redwine, Gerold Hightower, names that echo through generations, warriors who defined what the Kingsguard could be at its best. The Lord Commander, who rebuilt the Brotherhood into something legendary, who recruited Arthur Dayne and Barristan Selmy, who led by example and demanded excellence from everyone under his command. But greatness in battle and leadership tells only part of the story. The other part is darker, harder to celebrate. The years of watching Aereces descend into madness, the atrocities witnessed and not prevented, the complicity through inaction, the teaching given to Jaime Lannister that you serve without judging, even when judgment screams to be heard. Both versions are true. Gerold was great and flawed, noble and trapped, a hero and a cautionary tale. Human in all the ways that matter, trying his best with impossible situations, making choices that seemed right at the time but haunt when examined later, living with contradictions because life itself is contradiction. The oath he kept so absolutely is beautiful in theory. Serve the king without question, protect without judgment, give everything and ask nothing in return. It sounds noble. It is noble until the king is mad. Until protection enables cruelty. Until giving everything means abandoning your conscience. Duncan the Tall prepared Gerold for many things. How to lead, how to fight, how to serve with dignity. But Duncan died at Summerhall before the true test arrived, before Eris went mad, before the oath became a trap. Gerold faced those challenges alone, guided only by principles taught in a simpler time. He did the best he could, stood his ground when others fled, kept faith when faith was costly, and at the end found a cause worth dying for, a child to protect, an innocent life that mattered more than politics or dynasties. The Tower of Joy was many things, but it was also redemption, a chance to die for something pure, after years of serving something corrupt. Whether that death was meaningful or wasted depends on your perspective. Jon Snow lived, grew up, became important in ways Rhaegar may have foreseen. The 3 nights' sacrifice kept him alive long enough for Ned to make different choices, to hide the truth and raise the boy in safety. Their stand mattered in that sense. But would Jon have died if they had not been there? Would Ned have killed his own nephew? We cannot know. History deals in what happened, not what might have been. The only certainty is that 3 knights believed their stand was necessary, believed it enough to die for it, and perhaps belief itself gives meaning to sacrifice. The beacon of Old Town still burns as it has for thousands of years. House Hightower endures. They remember their greatest son with pride tinged by sorrow. He brought honor to the family name, served the realm with distinction, became a legend that will be told in stories for generations. But he never came home. Died far from the tower that shaped him, left no children to carry his bloodline forward. The cost of the white cloak is absolute. Everything surrendered, nothing held back. Gerold understood this from the beginning, accepted it willingly. Some men would have broken under that weight, abandoned the oath when it became too heavy. But the bull was stubborn, never bent, never broke, carried the burden until it finally crushed him. In the capital, the White Book still records his service, pages filled with his bold handwriting, deeds accomplished and failures endured. The official record of Lord Commander Gerold Hightower. Every knight who takes the white cloak reads those pages, studies that life, learns from that example. For better or worse, the white bull shaped what it means to be Kingsguard. The sun sets over the Red Mountains now as it does every evening, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. The same sky that witnessed the final battle now looks down on empty desert. The cairns cast long shadows, the wind sings across the stones, and somewhere in that vast silence, the spirits of 3 knights rest. They did their duty, kept their oaths, served their king to the very end. Whether history judges them as heroes or fools matters less than the fact that they never wavered, never questioned, never broke faith with the vows they swore. That is what the white cloak means in its purest form: absolute devotion, complete sacrifice, service without end or exception. Gerold Hightower embodied that ideal, lived it every day for 50 years, died with it intact. The white bull never broke, and in the end, perhaps that is the only thing we can say with certainty. Everything else is interpretation, opinion, perspective colored by values and beliefs. But the facts remain simple. Gerold Hightower served 3 kings across 5 decades, rebuilt the Kingsguard into legend, made impossible choices in impossible circumstances, and died keeping a promise in a forgotten tower. His body rests beneath desert stones. His name lives in songs and stories. His example guides and haunts every knight who follows. The White Bull, who never broke. The Lord Commander, who carried duty to its absolute limit and beyond. May he find peace in that service. May the oath he kept so faithfully finally release him. May the burden he carried for 50 years be lifted in death. The tower is gone. The war is over. The dynasty has fallen and risen, and fallen again. But the cairn remains, a marker, a memory, a testament to what one man believed honor demanded. If this story moved you, if the tale of the White Bull made you think about loyalty and duty and the price of keeping faith, then perhaps you understand why these stories matter, why we remember knights who died centuries ago in our histories, why the choices they made still resonate. Subscribe to hear more tales from the 7 kingdoms. Stories of honor and betrayal, courage and cowardice, the legends and the forgotten, the heroes and the villains and everyone in between. The Red Mountains, Sleep, the wind blows, and the white bull rests at last. His watch ended, his duty done, his oath kept to the very last breath. His story is finished, but the questions it raises endure forever.